Hey, hey, hey! Yes, today is National Homemade Cookies Day. Homemade cookies. Oh, yeah, hot and fresh coming out of the oven. So, maybe you're out picking up ingredients for some homemade cookies tonight. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what kind of cookie fan you might be. Fortunately, I don't get to eat cookies too much anymore. Oh well. Hey, I guess I'll cheer myself up and let you know that the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host here at the Daily Dope. Hey, it's the first day of October. How about that? Yay! I don't know. I like Halloween. Halloween's cool. October is also my birthday month. So later on the 24th will be my 51st birthday. So that's kind of cool too. But of course, here in the Chicago area, the weather starts getting a lot cooler, which I am not a fan of cold weather. That's why I lived out in Arizona on the Phoenix area for quite some time. So, have to point out, no news today. So, the show is a little bit late. If you follow the Daily Dope, you know I'm a huge Cubs fan. So, unfortunately, I was watching the tiebreaker game 163 with the Cubs and Milwaukee Brewers. And of course, the Brewers beat the Cubs 3-1 just a few moments ago. So the Cubs are officially the wild card team. They're not the division winners. But hey, I got to admit, it is for 4 years in a row the Cubs are going to the playoffs. So that's pretty sweet. Don't think they're going to hang out in the playoffs too well. I honestly don't know if they'll get past this wild card game tomorrow because the bats have just fallen asleep. Anyway, I also want to point out that if you followed the Gaming Gang for a few years, you know that I have done a Halloween Spooktacular for the last 3 years, where every day I'll post in an old-time radio show that you can listen to. Pretty spooky. And I have mentioned a few times I'm not going to do that this year because the reality is I wasn't doing a daily show back then either. So I don't really have the time to kind of try to hunt down new old-time radio episodes. That sounds kind of weird, right? New old-time radio episodes. So what I'm going to do is if you follow on Twitter, I'm going to post links to, each day I'll post a link to one of the three shows that I had previously shared, just so, if you like spooky old-time radio shows, I've got some really good ones. And that is also another reason why I really didn't get into trying to do another Spooktacular this year, because there are, a lot of scary episodes in that out there, or I should say episodes that are supposed to be scary, and they're just kind of I didn't want to just put up meh kind of episodes, have to focus on a lot of CBS radio mystery theater or anything like that. So, other thing I do want to point out too before I jump into my review of Legends of Andor from Kosmos Games is today actually marks the beginning of year 9 of the Gaming Gang. Pretty crazy. I don't count September 1st as our start, even though Elliot Miller and I were posting articles at that time. We started on September 1st, and we didn't tell anybody we existed until October 1st because we wanted to have a good amount of articles and news pieces, some reviews and things like that already up when we told people about the website. So today officially marks the beginning of the 9th year. So pretty wild. All right, do want to point out that there is chat available. This is a live stream. I'm highly doubting anybody's watching live right now because I'm not on at the usual time. So if people weren't following on Twitter, or if they don't follow on Twitter, they didn't know that the show would be late. So did want to mention that there is chat available if anybody happens to be watching live. It's on YouTube. It is not on screen. It's one of the ways that I try to keep some of the stranger comments at bay. But if you are watching live and you want to say hello, or if you've got a question, or you want to see something a little more in depth about Legends of Andor, by all means, feel free, chime in, and let me know. I am going to talk about what's coming up on the show later on this week. What I've got planned for this week as far as the Daily Dope. Usually I do that before I jump into an unboxing or review, but since we don't have any news today, I'll save that for after I do my review of Legends of Andor. So, without further ado, do want to point out Legends of Andor is from Kosmos Games. It's designed by Michael Menzel, who also provides the artwork. I'm sure a lot of folks out there are familiar with Michael's artwork. If I remember correctly, I think this is actually his first game design. I am not positive. The game is for 2 to 4 players, ages 10 and up, plays in around an hour to an hour and a half, depending on what adventure you happen to be playing. Legends of Andor was originally released in Europe in 2012 and was made available in North America through Fantasy Flight Games. This game that I'm taking a look at is actually the Kosmos Games edition, which came out in 2015. It does carry an MSRP of $59.95. All right, so we're popping over to the other camera here. I've got this set up. I'm going to pop on the old reading specs. I have my camera way up here because this game takes up quite a bit of space. This board itself takes up a good amount of space. Now, I know in the upper left corner, my mug is actually blocking a little bit of Andor, the city. A little bit of the city. There's a couple of items up here where my hand is that I'm cutting off right now that I will mention. It's not super important that we see them at the moment. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to be kind of an odd review, to be very honest with you, because Legends of Andor is a fantasy game. It's a cooperative game. It has a lot of story to it. And I don't want to spoil the stories. It does come with 5 different adventures. They are all part of a campaign, effectively, but they all play pretty differently as well, which I will talk about as well. So you've got up to 4 players. It is a co-op game. It is a bit of a puzzly game, I should point out. Eurogamers will probably dig that, the fact that there is a puzzle aspect to this game. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of take a look at the board here. Now, one thing I want to mention is there's actually another side to this game board that's got a completely different map, which is utilized for one of the other adventures. It's actually pretty cool. It looks completely different. It's kind of like a subterranean land. Very, very cool. It's pretty sweet, but this is the map that you'll use most of the time. Now, you may not use the entire map per se, depending on what adventure you are playing. So as we tour around, this area up here, this box up here, is what they call the sunlight box. If I remember right, I think it's called sunlight. So what this means is when the players have finished their actions for that day, their discs and they are matching the colors. So for an example here, the archer is green. Show you that. The archer is green, so the archer has green discs. So there's a green disc on the game board here to track the hours of the day, their actions effectively, as well as there's a disc that goes on their character board, like so. Now, this is not the ranger, this is the dwarf, but you're going to mark your willpower points with the other disc. And then you've got a cube of the same color, and that's where you're going to mark your strength points. So if we take a look We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Each of the game days, the adventurers actually have about 7 hours that they can spend doing things. There is a possibility if they want to kind of push it, they can get an 8th, 9th, or 10th hour as well, but it does cost them willpower. And willpower is a pretty precious commodity, I must admit. Now, of course, these game boards, these character boards, I've got some event cards here. I've got some story cards here. These are not going to go on to the game board. It's just because this takes up quite a good amount of space on your table. I'm just kind of laying them onto some of the areas here just to kind of show them off. So to kind of give you an idea, this is one of the character boards here. Let's take a look at this. This is the character. This is Thorn. Thorn is a fighter. One thing I like is you flip it on over. So if you want Thorn to be female, you can do that. Or I should say it, then it becomes Marin. But if you want the male fighter, you're going to flip it over to this. Same exact thing with the archer and the wizard. I thought that was a nice little extra to the game as well. So you can have up to 4 players, and depending on what gender you want the characters to be, it's right there for you. So if we take a look, we're going to see what their strength level is. We're going to see what their rank is. The rank's not super important. The rank basically means who's going to go first in the beginning turn. Then we've got special abilities that character might have. So for an example, the ranger gets to attack adjacent areas as opposed to having to be in the same area to fight monsters. But the interesting thing too is you're going to be rolling dice, and your willpower level is going to show how many dice you get to roll, plus the character type you've got. And usually you just roll them all at one time, whereas with this character here, you can roll them one at a time, stopping whenever you want. Then the fighter, special ability, he gets 3 willpower. I should say 5 willpower points when he empties a well. There are different well areas around the board here. And then the wizard's kind of interesting because the wizard isn't very strong, but the wizard gets to change their die. So the wizard gets to roll a die, and if they don't like the result of their die, they can change it to the one that's on the other side. So for an example, you roll a 3, you could say, well, I want a 4. If you roll a 1, come on, 1. You say, oh, I got a 1? No way. I'm getting a 6. So I thought that was kind of cool. So we've got the different characters here. We also have an equipment board. And this is kind of where the marketplace, when you go and buy stuff, when you go to the marketplace. So there's wineskins, shields, you got a bow, helms, a falcon, telescope. There's actually a witch that's in one of the adventures, and the witch has a witch's brew that you can get. So this you'll actually have off to the side. There are a bunch of tokens, and it's funny because some of the tokens are used for certain adventures, other tokens are used in other adventures, so it's kind of wild. Where do we got those? Where did I put them? Where are the equipment tokens at? All right. What's going on? Now, one of the things that here we go. They're over here. So you'll actually have all of these different counters that you can utilize that, for an example, like the bow and each of the character areas on the character board will have just like this. So if you bought a bow, you could put the bow on the character board, just like so. So for an example, the dwarf here, the dwarf can go to the dwarven mine, which is on a special space over here, and purchase strength. So So I thought this was pretty cool. I get a kick out of all these different kind of counters for the marketplace and that. So another really interesting aspect is Legends of Andor gives you a quick start guide, super easy to read through, right? So we're only looking at like 4 pages to get into the first adventure. And once you've done that, now you also have a reference manual, because most of the rules and everything are actually through the cards. Now, of course, this goes into a little more detail, and then it talks about the different items. For example, like the wineskin, the falcon, the telescope. Then, if you want to make the game easier, you've got different color cards that as you're playing the adventure. But as you can see, there's a lot of stuff. The box is actually pretty heavy. And there were, I want to say there were 4 or 5 punch boards full of tokens. So you've got money, you've got coins, you've got different items. We've got different monsters, or quite a few of these monster standees. You've actually got kind of like NPC standees, depending on the adventure that you're playing. We've got event cards. Once again, these event cards all depend on what adventure you're playing. That's a special deck of event cards for one of the adventures. This one here is basically the starting adventure 1, which kind of introduces all the different mechanics really to the game. And to be honest, there aren't a ton of mechanics to this game. So what I'm going to do here is I have to jump up. I'm telling you, this is pretty high up here. So hopefully this doesn't end up falling over either. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to kind of show off some of these things a little closer. So here we got the character board, right? So you've got the strength points. It'll tell you as far as, so we've got spots for like gold and gemstones. We've got spots for items. So for an example, this is where you could have the shield or the bow or the helm. Other items here as well. So I thought that was pretty cool. So you've got these little kind of almost transparent boxes where you're going to lay those items in. So we've got each of the characters are going to have a standee. So kind of show off the standees a little bit. And they each have a different standee based on the gender of the hero that you're using. So I thought that was kind of cool too, where you can flip over the character board up here, depending on what gender you want. And there's also a standee for each of those. All right, so as we kind of take a look, the game is actually set up with your quick start guide, where basically what the quick start guide does is it just kind of walks you through how to play the game. First, it's kind of basically telling you how to move around, and then it talks a little bit about when you're fighting monsters. So the first adventure comes with a deck. And these cards are actually tarot size. I really like these cards. Really nicely done. So here we have a checklist card, and this is kind of cool because it says, okay, so if you're going to play, the adventures are called Legends. If you're going to play one of the adventures, except for the first one, you're going to want to make sure that you have this checklist card, and you go through and you take a look and go, okay, this is what everybody's going to do. So everybody gets to choose a hero board. They take their tokens. We're going to shuffle up the different events. So normally you're going to have these gold event cards. You're going to mix in these different fog tokens, which are these tokens here that you're going to lay out into the fog circles. That got bumped earlier. See, I had to bring the camera up as high as I could, and it ended up, well, I had my back turned. The camera actually fell over, knocked a bunch of stuff flying. So just making sure that, Yeah, let's get some stuff in here where we can see. So you'll also notice that we've got these different spaces, right? So we've got this is an area here. This is area 38. This is area 32. This is what else we got? Area 42. So each of the heroes will actually start off in a specific spot. Now I'm not necessarily gonna go by exactly what the rules tell me to do right now. But early in the game, the first legend you're playing, the first part of the first legend, because the first legend is actually broken up into 2 parts. You're actually going to use these blue tiles to represent stuff that's on the map in more than one location. So there's things that are in more than one location on this map, or I should say on the board, that you'll eventually be able to go to, but this kind of explains what each of them is. So in the first legend, you're actually playing in a smaller area that's off this way, up in the kind of the side and the upper left of the board. And you'll actually have these. So it says gold. If a hero ends his move on this space, he immediately receives 1 gold from the trove. This token is now removed from the game. It's the turn of the next hero in a clockwise direction. We've got the merchant. Hero ends its move on a space with a merchant. You can buy 1 strength point for every 2 gold. Then it's the turn of the next hero. So this will change. So the merchant, you can get 2 strength if you stop at the merchant in the first legend. After that, you're going to start seeing where those items get added in. You got a well. And now there are counters, there are tokens for you to put on the well spaces. And if a hero ends their turn, they end their movement, in an area that has a well, they get to add 3 willpower points. Those are these points right here. And these willpower points determine how many dice you're going to get to roll in combat. So we've got the well. So there are a couple of spots where you get 2 gold. Well, I should say in the first legend, you're going to have 1 spot to get 2 gold. You'll have another spot, you'll get 1 gold. But when you're playing other legends, other adventures, you are going to see that there are wells and merchants and like gold troves around the board. You also have these gray discs here. And in the first adventure, like I said, these things kind of got bumped around, but you'll see there's kind of a transparent circle. These are where these fog tokens go. And when your hero moves into an area that's got a fog token, you get to flip it over, see what it is. Could be good, could be bad. You don't know. It's kind of, it's something, something's there, but you're not sure what it might be. Now, one thing that's kind of cool is that the ranger character is able to check out what these tokens are from an adjacent spot. So the archer, who I personally think is kind of like a ranger, is going to be able to see, if they're here in area 46, they can see what's in area 44. They flip it over, kind of give you an idea. Oh, well, you would be drawing an event card. You would be taking an event card. So for an example here, you just found that. That would give you 3 willpower to add to your total of willpower. So that's kind of how that operates. So when the characters are going to move, it actually takes them time. Now, every area they decide they want to move to. So let's say for an example, I'll just lay that down so it looks better. Let's say we've got our ranger up here in area 46. Let's say they needed to go down to area 39. Well, we have to click off 1 hour of time for every move that they'll make. So it'd be 1, 2, 3 hours of time. Now, each time you enter into an area that's got, most of the time, has any kind of a counter in it, like these fog tokens, it's a free action for you to flip that over. It does not take up any additional time whatsoever. Another thing that takes up time is when you're fighting monsters. Fighting monsters also will take you some time. So We've got different monsters in the game. These are called gores. They're not the toughest around, right? They're kind of like the kobolds, the goblins. They're easier to dispatch than bigger batter. These are called sklars, if I remember right. So these are tougher. We've got these. Then we also have, where did they go? Got them over here. We've got like these devil dogs. So they're tougher than the previous two. We also have kind of a troll sort of creature here. And then there's actually, and I think this is kind of cool, there's also a dragon. So, well, that's kind of the giveaway that there's a dragon in one of the legends that you're going to battle, right? So we got the dragon. I thought that was kind of neat. And when you're putting everything in the box, you can just take the wings off. The wings slip right back on. So we've got the dragon. So we've got that monster as well. So one thing I want to point out, you don't have tons and tons of different sorts of monsters, at least in the core game for Legends of Andor. But they're kind of cool. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually zoom back out. So let me hop back up. All right, so to kind of give you an idea, as I grab another sip and then wheel my chair back in here, to kind of give you an idea how the game plays, you have these decks, okay? So we've got, this is for Legend 1. Legend 1 is 12 cards. You're going to play through, well, you've got these two cards here, which are actually, like I said, one of the things that's kind of cool is you don't really have to sit there and study a bunch of rules to get into this game, because you'll have cards that'll tell you, oh, okay, Arrival of the Heroes introductory game. Oh, how do you fight together? It tells you how you can fight together. Oh, end of battle. Flip this on over. Hey, so battle won, battle lost. I thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was pretty interesting how the way that this edition is made. Now, I don't know if this was the case with the Fantasy Flight Games edition or not. I would take a wild stab. Being FFG, they probably had a big rule book to end up reading through. I don't know for a fact. I mean, nothing may have changed as far as the two different editions. So, but I thought that was kind of cool. So what you do is you actually will flip over your A1 card. Now, there's a track that runs down along the side here, and it goes from A to N. And depending on the legend you're playing, you're going to mark some stars off here, because the stars are going to tell you, all right, so when do you draw the next card? Because you're going to go through each of these cards. So the first thing, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to show you a couple of these cards. So it starts off, the king's scouts could hardly believe their eyes. At last, Prince, it says Price. I thought it's supposed to be Prince, but it says Price Therold had returned and called together the bravest heroes from all regions of Andor. That's your characters. Those are the player characters in this. In this first part of the introductory game, the heroes must complete 4 tasks before the actual adventure can begin. The tasks are as follows. At least one hero must uncover a fog token. At least one hero must buy 1 strength point from the merchant. He will need 2 gold for that. A hero must empty the well. And finally, a hero must end his move on the castle. This is the castle. Right up here, this is the castle, which is kind of getting cut off. It says all tasks must be completed when the heroes have ended their moves on the respective spaces. The hero with the lowest rank, see hero board, goes first and places his time marker on the Sunrise Box's rooster. So, putting it on the rooster means you're going to be the player who's going to go first the next day. That's what the rooster means. So it's very possible for players to end their days at different times. So, and then it says, okay, let's continue on to Legend Card A2. Flip that on over, see how it's marked A2. It says, note, castle, space 0 can be entered like any normal space. The river cannot be entered. It can only be crossed by the bridges. Bridges are not spaces and are not counted as spaces when moving. Each hero has just 7 hours of time, so you should consult with each other to decide which hero is going to complete which task. First part of the introductory game ends when a hero ends his move on the castle, or when all the heroes have used up their 7 hours on the time track. So this is basically saying that this first part of the adventure, all the players need to do is learn how to move. So, and these heroes begin on various different spaces, depending on the legend. So, as I said, this game is going to just walk you through all the things. You know, it kind of reminds me in some ways of some of the escape room sort of games that have come out recently, where you just kind of take the deck out, it's already pre-built for you, and then it's like, okay, flip this card, you do this. Flip this card, you do this. Kind of similar in that aspect. So we've got that. So each turn, the players are going to take turns performing actions. They're going to either move or they're going to fight. And then they've got free actions as well that they can utilize. So if they are going to fight, well, okay, let's say for an example, we're going to move, right? So we're going to move our dwarf character here. He was the first guy. So he says, all right, so let's put him down here just for the heck of it. Yeah, he's still, I was going to say, make sure we can see him. All right, so let's say all the players say, all right, well, what we're going to do here is, let's say they're all scattered around. Okay, well, this dwarf here, he's going to go and reveal one of the fog tokens. All right, so we go 1, 2, that's going to cost 2 hours. Bang. 2 hours are gone. We mark that. And he gets to flip that over. Hey, +3 to willpower. 1, 2, 3. This gets discarded. So that's removed from the game. All right, well, he did his move, right? The dwarf did his move. Now it moves to, let's say it's the, we don't have the wizard. We're doing a 3-player game for the heck of it. All right, so then we say, okay, next person up is green. That's the ranger. The ranger says, okay, well, I'm going to go and try to earn some gold. So you're going to have, like, to start off the game, the first adventure, the first legend, you're going to have, like I said, you're going to have these tiles set up at different areas. Now, the weird thing is, sometimes these tiles don't actually fit in the area they're supposed to go into, but I'm just going to put it in the 17 for the heck of it. So we say, okay, so here we go. So 1, because remember, we can't cross a river unless there's a bridge. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be 4 hours. Boom, we go to 4. And the character is going to get the 2 gold. You're going to remove this tile. Like I said, these tiles are only going to be used in the introductory legend. And then we go, okay, so next I've got the hero who's blue. Let's say the well is the well's over here someplace. Let's get this out of the way. Well's over here. Yep, I'm actually kind of sitting there and blocking it off there with the box that I've got here. So we say, okay, well, now it's the blue player's turn, who's the fighter. And he says, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then they're going to end that move over here in space 5. So they're really up there. They're going to empty the well. The well gets flipped over. And because he's the fighter, his special ability would have been to add... He's the warrior. he would be able to add 5 willpower. So his willpower would have gone from 7 all the way 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 12. So not too shabby. That's pretty cool. So right there in the first day, we've already gotten a bunch of stuff taken care of. So he moved 4. So he's up at 4 there. So everybody's made a move. Everybody's taken some actions in that. So now it falls to the dwarf player again. The dwarf player says, okay, so somebody's got gold. They're going to go to the merchant. Merchant's over here. Might as well just pop that right there. So figure, okay, well, the ranger, the archer here, has the 2 gold. They can go over to the merchant and increase their strength. So we already know this introductory adventure is just teaching us how to move around. And we already know, okay, so we already revealed one of the fog tokens. So that was one of the things we needed to do. We still need to go and buy strength from the merchant, which we know the archer is going to do. So because they've got the gold to do it, we needed to empty a well, which we already know the warrior, the fighter, already did it. So the last thing we're going to need for this part of the adventure is to have somebody move into the castle. So for the heck of it, the dwarf says, okay, well, I guess I'll try to head to the castle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be the 7 hours. Boom. 7 hours. And that would be the end of the day for the dwarf player. So they would say, okay, well, my turn's coming to an end. And they would actually get to put their disc onto the rooster right there. They would get to put it on the rooster because that means, hey, I get to go first on the next day. So, all right. So we're sitting here and we go, okay, well, that's fine. Next player clockwise, let's say it was the ranger again. So the ranger's going to go move 1 area here. They're going to end their movement here, and they're going to spend their 2 gold that they got. Let's say they had the 2 gold from here. They're going to spend that, and they get to buy a strength point. So they would increase the strength. I'm just using this as an example on the character board for them. So the ranger would have gone up 1 more, and then that would end their move. Now it's back to the warrior. So the warrior says, okay, well, I'm right next to the castle. I'm just going to use 1 hour to move to the castle. Boom, move to the castle. There you go. And that would be the end of that part of the adventure. We got the 4 things that we needed to do, and they're done. Easy peasy, right? This is just showing people how to play the game. So once you've done that, then these tiles would disappear. These tiles are gone. Like I said, we've got the Merchant Martyr, we got the Merchant Martyr, we've got Wells Martyr because the well can be full or it can be emptied. So when a character empties the well, you're going to flip that token over to show that it's empty, and then the next day it flips back over to be used once again. When you start getting into the other legends, the second part of this adventure, you're going to actually start fighting monsters. So we've got the monster track down here. And the monsters actually, depending on what the monster is going to determine how powerful it is and what kind of dice it uses. So, for an example, these gores, these kind of like goblin / kobold sorts of critters, monsters, are pretty easy to defeat. They've got a strength of 2, and they've got a willpower of 2. So what'll happen here is, like I said before, your character can move or they can fight. So, as an example here, let's say let's go with the dwarf. Let's say the dwarf was over here as we're playing, because you'll have monsters popping up, and the cards are going to tell you what are the monsters that are popping up. Just like you've got event cards. You're going to flip over event cards as well as these legend cards. So these events, because you'll sometimes have turns, or days, I guess we can say, that have a letter here, but there's no card for it. So to make sure that something's going on, you actually will draw different events from various decks depending on what legend you're in. Well, this is the first card here. So it's a start card, only required in the introductory game. Sudden screams echo through the countryside. They're coming! The Gores are moving in the gray of dawn, and Rightbird Castle is in danger. So then it says, okay, place Gores on space 16, 22, 23, and 24, regardless if there happens to be a hero there or not. So what happens is, you'll have these different, let's grab 4 of these. And what do we have? We got 16, we've got 22, 22's down this way. We'll say it's over here. We'll cheat. We'll say that is 22. Okay, I'm not cheating. 23 right here, and then we've got 24. We need one more of these guys. And there's quite a few of these. Now, one thing I thought was kind of cool is if you take a look at the standee, it'll show a little color box, and that tells you exactly what color stand to put the little standee on, so you don't have to screw around a whole lot. So for an example, that had a little green box. Easy peasy, jumped right on that. All right, so we had 22, 23, and 24. So that's 24 over here. So what will happen is, let's get rid of that. That was an extra. So what you'll have is you'll have these monsters, and these monsters are all trying to get to the castle. They want to attack the castle over here. And depending on how many players you've got, it's actually kind of blocked off at the moment here. But there's a little area that shows, for an example, if we had 3 players, we can only have 2 monsters get to the castle. The third monster that would get to the castle is going to end the game, end that legend, that adventure in defeat for the players. Other way that you can be defeated too is if you're moving along, and I do have to point out, there was supposed to be like a white token, almost like a pawn. It almost looks like, here, I'll show you. Is it in? Yeah, here we go. So right here, they're showing this white pawn. I did not get one in this game. There was no white pawn in the game. Not a huge deal. We just marked it with a penny. It wasn't, horrible, but I do want to point out, for some reason, I was missing that pawn. Anyway, so the thing is, this is where the puzzly aspect will start coming into play with Legends of Andor, because when you play each of the legends, you've got the deck. You've got your game deck here, right? B1, then we got B2, C. These cards are always going to be revealed in the same order. So the first time you play, it's like, oh, wow. Oh, hey, okay, that's kind of cool. Whoa, there's monsters there. Monsters popped up there. Oh, wow. But after you've played, when you go to play that legend once again, nothing's going to change. It's still going to be the same. Now, it does change with your events. The events can, of course, these are shuffled up, so that is different in each of the legends are the events. Now, you're still going to have the same events in this deck, but because you're going to shuffle them up, the events aren't going to play out in the same order each and every game, whereas these legend cards will all play in the same order. So, in the introductory game, because you're not using the equipment board, you're going to flip it over. It's going to show you the battle board. And this is just basically, it's on the card as well here for the battle card that's in this deck. It basically walks you through the whole process of fighting, and it's pretty easy. So what you do is, let's say we're back at the beginning of a new day and we've got some monsters that have popped up, because you are going to draw one of these event cards, as well as when you move onto each turn, you're going to reveal the legend card, but you're also going to be taking an event card. So what you're going to do is you're going to go and try to fight some of these monsters. Now, one of the things is, some of these monsters can be pretty tough. You need more than one adventurer to attack some of these monsters, like especially, for an example, the dragon. You're going to buff your heroes up, but you're still not going to send one hero to take out the dragon, because you're going to have one nearly impossible time doing it. So what you'll end up doing is you're going to move along. You're going to use your actions just like usual, right? So you're going to move your actions. Let's say the dwarf is here. He's moving first. He wants to go to this area here. Boom. That's 2 hours. That's going to end his actions for right now. So there's not a fight yet. And then, of course, let's say that the warrior was next. The warrior goes and does their thing, and then the ranger goes and does their thing, and we come back to the dwarf about to fight this gore, the little critters, the little monsters. So what you end up doing is, depending on the willpower of the hero, so right now we're in the 2 dice, and everybody's going to get dice based on the color of their character. So we're going to actually be using 2 dice, and we see that on this down here, that with a willpower of 2, the gores are going to only roll 2 of the red dice. So what you get to do is you're going to roll your dice, you're going to take the highest number, and you're going to add your strength. So we got a couple of 4s. We add 1 to that, that's a 5. Now, the monster gets a roll their dice. And the way I kind of looked at it was that these are like groups of monsters, because you guys are supposed to be like these legendary heroes. Come on, really? Taking out one little guy? So I kind of was like, oh yeah, it's a group of gores. It's a couple of trolls. So a little more exciting. So anyway, so you're going to roll your monster die. Well, here, the gore rolled a 6 plus a strength of 2. That's going to be an 8. So we got 8 versus 5. Well, unfortunately, the dwarf has lost this battle. So they're going to lose the difference. So they're going to end up losing 3 willpower. So they're going to be down to 7. So there's really no health. It's just willpower points. Now that would take an hour. So you can battle again. It's going to take another hour. So you're going to, once again, dwarf says, yeah, okay, so I'm going to fight again. Oops. So they're going to roll their dice. Oh, there we go. Got a 6 and a 1. So that's going to be a 7. And they get a 6. So the monster is going to lose 1 of the willpower. Now, one of the cool things about the monsters are, if you roll 2 of the same dice, you actually add those together, and that's what they're going to get. Actually, I made a mistake. Should have just been, I was adding strength to these guys, which they shouldn't have gotten. They should have just had that 6 before. But the thing is, if you roll matching numbers, then you add them together for the monsters. Now, you don't do that for the heroes. The heroes just get the highest number on the highest die. So that's one of the reasons why your heroes are going to be off trying to get equipment from the merchant. They're trying to buy strength points, things like that, to improve their ability at fighting so that their strength in the battles is higher. Because you can actually have, you'd have this little guy here end up rolling a couple of sixes. You know, there you go, boxcars. Well, that's not going to be good for you, because we show here the different willpower. So you don't want to get down to 0 willpower. Anyway, so that is basically how fighting will work. So you can either run away if you want, or you continue fighting, and you're going to continue fighting, and every time you fight, it's going to add another hour until you run out of time once again. Now, if you want, you can spend the willpower to try to take them out. But usually with some of the smaller monsters, it's not going to take tons of time to dispatch them. And then if you beat them, it'll also show, well, you get gold for doing that. So if the dwarf were to defeat the Gore, then they're going to get 2 gold for defeating that monster. Something else is these monsters, at the end of each turn, you're going to go through, and it actually shows you this right in the quick start. So the first part of Legend 1 is right here. Then the second part of Legend 1 are these next pages here. So it says Sunrise Box. So it says, okay, so once you've gone and you've used up your hours, check this out. This is what you're going to do next. So you're going to read the top event card and carry out its instructions, right? So this was the top event card telling us to put those monsters out here. Then any Gore, these guys, that's on the board. So let's say these other heroes were busy doing other stuff. They didn't go and fight the monsters. They're going to move. So the way they move is you actually move them from the lowest number space first. So he was in 16, right? And they're going to follow these arrows. So 16 is going to move to 13. He's coming closer to the castle. Then we've got 22, moves to 19. Then we got 23, moves to 19. But the thing is, you can only have 1 monster token in each of the areas. So then what happens is, if that were the case, he gets to jump over him into the next one in line. So for an example here, 24 actually moves up to 21. So it's important for you to try to battle some of these monsters before they can get to the castle, because if they move into the castle, with a 3-player game, you're going to be able to have 2 monsters basically in the castle, and there's like a little area that you just kind of pop them in to show that, you know, they're attacking the castle. And if a 3rd gets there, then it's game over. Then you've lost if you allow 3 of the monsters to make it to the castle. Now, the other thing that's kind of interesting too is the Gores move first, and then the other monsters will move. So for an example, if we had something like, let's say this and that, whoops, and let's say this, right? So that's how these monsters have moved. And then we got the bigger batter monster. Well, he's supposed to move into this spot here, but this spot's occupied. So's that spot. And then this one's also next. So he would actually go from here, boom, into the castle. That is bad news. So this is why I mentioned this. It's kind of there's a bit of a puzzle aspect to the game, because, well, you're pretty free to go do whatever you want. You know, like I said, it's a cooperative game. You're going to sit there and you're going to discuss different things. The whole point is that you still have to do certain things in a certain amount of time. So, for an example, when you get into the other legends, you're going to follow, of course, every time you move, Every time you finish up a day, you're going to move your token up on the track. Now, these star icons are just indicating that don't forget you've got cards here. But when we get like the E, when we get into E, E is still a turn. It still allows you to do stuff. It's just, and you're going to be drawing an event card during this turn. It's just showing that there's no card, there's no legend card that you're going to reveal on this turn. If that were the case, if it was like every turn you were flipping one of these over, you'd never have an opportunity to defeat these legends. The legend can be difficult too, especially the first time you're playing the legend, because you don't know exactly what you're going to need to do. Sometimes everything's going to be different. So when you flip over the first card, it's going to say, hey, all right, you guys need to do this, 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 and this before you get to turn N. Because if you get to turn N, you finish turn N, and you have not completed your objectives, you will lose. If monsters have gotten into the castle, you will lose. Now that, of course, is different for the adventure, the map that's on the back of this, the other legend, the one that's like subterranean. It's a little bit different. In fact, all of these legends will play differently. And as I mentioned before, the cool thing about them is, as I show you here. So for an example, this is the second adventure. This is Legend 2. So Legend 2 says this legend contains 14 cards. It tells you exactly what you need, and then it tells you, okay, you're going to need the witch, and you're also going to need the rune stones. Now the witch is a standee, and I was looking to see if I had it anywhere right near me, but I don't see her. All right, but then the rune stones are actually in here. You got all these, like I said, you got all these different counters and tokens, and some you'll use for some adventures, some you'll use for other adventures. Another thing I should point out too is sometimes you'll have the monsters using these dice to roll. So you might have one die, and it goes 6, 8, 10, 12. So that is that's a little scary when you're fighting some of these monsters. They're not rolling 2 or 3 dice and taking the highest roll. They're rolling, possible 12, bang, right there. So kind of cool. I thought that was kind of cool too. There's a lot of stuff that I really do like about Legends of Andor. First off is I think the components are excellent. I think the components are really, really nice. Everything fits into the box really well. I was a little surprised there wasn't kind of a little bit of a, almost like either a tuck box or kind of a plastic insert. But the thing is, if you take all of the standees out, put all the other components in, then put the standees back in, everything fits. It's fine. Not a problem there. I like the adventures. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil them by revealing these cards and showing you what happens. I do dig the adventures. I think the adventures are pretty cool. I like the fact that you're really learning the rules in the game from the legends themselves, from these legend cards. If you need to, you can resort to the reference manual, which is just a few pages. And most of it is devoted to, okay, well, let's explain exactly what happens in this game. Kind of tell you, the hero board, hero actions, move actions, fight actions, free actions you get. So like for an example, as I mentioned, if you move into a location that's got a fog token, you flip it over, you resolve what that fog token is. It's a free action, doesn't take any time. So, but yeah, you're looking at all of 8 pages here. Then, of course, you've got the option to make the game, some of the legends a little bit easier by utilizing different cards. They're different color. They're the green cards. So, got all of these cards here. All of these different things. Just flip that back over. These are from our A1, A2. So you got all those. You've got the various different events. So for an example, the events can be good or bad. So this event here, the bright ray of sunlight breaks through the darkness and lifts the spirits of the heroes. The entire group gets 5 willpower points. You can decide as a group which hero gets how many points. But then you'll also have some rotten food. I'm not going to go through all of these different events. Now remember, this is the event deck just for the early adventure, legends, I should say. So like I said, there are 5 legends that are included in the game. This is usually the main event deck. You can see this is a bigger event deck. And then we've got the event deck that's got the tentacles on it. But these legends cards are going to tell you exactly what you need. So Legend 3, Days of Resistance, it says, okay, this legend consists of 9 cards and 4 dark magic cards. Legend 3 is kind of the shortest of the bunch. Legend 5 is pretty long. And I will not reveal, once again, any of the details about that. So there's a lot to like about the game. Then there's a few things that are kind of like, okay. So pretty much, like I said, this was a bit of an odder review because there's so much story in this. So many of these cards unveil that story as you're playing. I don't want to ruin it because you've got the 5 legends that come in the core game. So anyway, I really dig the components. I like the stories. I like how you don't really have to sit down and read some real long rule book. Just figure out what's going on. I like that it's co-op. I like that it's co-op and it doesn't necessarily have to be just you always reacting to things. So I thought that was kind of cool as well. So a lot of things that I like about it. Now, there's a couple of things gotta sort of give a little bit of a critique. I'm not necessarily going to say, oh, well, makes the game bad. Well, the only thing is, you got to keep in mind that because there are the 5 legends, and because so many of the things going on are already set in stone in the decks, obviously enough, when you're playing through that legend, you're going to know what's going to happen. You know the story. You're not going to have all these surprises outside of some of the event cards that you're going to be drawing every day during the adventure. So that's you know, I don't know. I've seen that before in certain games, especially like escape room games. Like I said, you get the escape room deck, and it's kind of a play it once and you're done sort of thing, or play it through to a completion once and you're done. This is better than that because there is more random things going on. But it is true that the replayability does suffer. But then again, people go and pick up legacy games and play so many games in a legacy game, and then that's it. Or they purchase, a new pack for them to kind of like refresh their legacy game. So I'm not going to use that as a knock. I'm not dinging it because of that, dinging the review score because of that. Other thing too is there is a bit of a puzzle aspect to it. And whereas you think that each player can kind of go about doing whatever they want to do, you only have so much time to take care of your objectives that you need to take care of. So it is kind of programmed into the legends what you should kind of be doing each day. Now, granted, there will be some events that change things up. So it's not unusual for you to lose, and lose badly, the first time you play one of the legends. Once you've played it and lost, you get a better feel for what needs to be done and how you could probably plan for that better when you do it again. So, it's a little odd. It's Euro-y. That's the whole thing. This is a Euro-themed game. This is a Euro-style game, I should say, that has a fantasy theme to it. If someone thinks that this is going to be like, oh, well, this is kind of co-op fantasy game like, say, Defenders of the Realm. No, it's not. There's way more randomness going on in Defenders of the Realm, which I really like. But then this. Then again, there's a whole lot more story going on, and twists and turns, and just unique things that just you start utilizing depending on the adventure you're playing, depending on the legend. That makes this very, very unique. This is a very unique design. Do want to mention that I believe there are 2 expansions for Legends of Andor. Now, there are, of course, 2 more games in the series, but I do believe there are 2 more expansions for the core game that add more heroes, more legends, more monsters, things like that. So, of course, that does increase the replayability of Legends of Andor. Gotta say, this is my first game I had an opportunity to play from Kosmos. I really like it. I like it. Like I said, the replayability does suffer. There is kind of a puzzle aspect that some people may not dig. I liked it. I had a good time. I will admit, we have not played the 5th legend. We have not gotten to the 5th legend yet. We have played the first 4. We did not successfully complete the 4th one. Once again, being honest there too. But I do like it. I do think it's pretty cool. I have to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, I certainly give Legends of Andor a very solid 8.4. So it is definitely worth a purchase, unless you don't like kind of like puzzly aspects of games, and the fact that there may not be the same kind of replayability as in other board games with Legends of Andor. All right, so usually I would start wrapping up the show here. I am not. I'm going to talk about what's coming up on future episodes. Now, if you have been watching The Daily Dope, you already know that I have 2 appointments this week. I've got an appointment tomorrow with my new primary care provider, and then on Thursday, I've got to follow up with my cardiologist. So I was kind of thinking, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do some shows on those days. This is what I'm going to do, is basically I am going to do a show again tomorrow, probably end up being later, probably not going to have any news, or maybe I'll have a little bit of news. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a first look at Cryptid from Osprey Games. And I have actually heard some good stuff about this. I've heard some pretty good buzz. And this is a deduction game. So I am going to unbox this and take a first look at that. On Wednesday, things will be normal. It'll be a normal show, normal time. I'm going to review Fort Sumter, the Secession Crisis 1860 to 1861 from GMT Games. Thursday, like I said, I've got the follow-up with the cardiologist. I don't think it's going to take a whole lot of time. So I'm going to be reviewing the source book for Tales from the Loop, Our Friends the Machines, and Other Mysteries. I really dug Tales from the Loop. So you'll have to find out what I think about this. Then on Friday, I usually like to try to do some kind of like family fare on Fridays. I'm going to review Barbarian Battlegrounds from my friends over at Greenbrier Games. So that is what's coming up on episodes this week. So, as I always like to point out, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to swing out over to thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. By now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. I will be back tomorrow. Like I said, I'll follow on Twitter. I'll tweet out what time I think the show should be. Then again, it might be the usual 2 o'clock Central Time. All depends on how long. Honestly, I'm also thinking of getting a flu shot, which I've never had before. And I have heard a lot of times getting a flu shot makes you feel kind of lousy. Don't know. Never had one, but I think I should get one because I had the flu pretty bad last year. But anyway, so I will be back tomorrow. Enjoy the first day of October. Have a great Monday. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.